Welcome, everybody, to the PHDJ podcast. My name is Mike.
And this is Joe.
How are you, Joe?
Well, Mike.
Be honest. Be honest. How are you?
Well, not great. Not great.
Yeah. We'll let the listeners in on a little pre-show. Joe and I struggled with the topic this week because it's and I'll start off with a curse word. So if you don't like those, tune out right now. But it's the fucked up time, isn't it, Joe? I mean, it's just, is there a better way to describe it?
Ironically, I was going to tell people, if you don't like cursing, this is not the episode. This is
not
for
the
you.
episode.
Skip to an old one and come back to us next week.
I mean, we have been pummeled with horrible news with the coronavirus and the loss of life and livelihood and everything else. And then on top of that, the horrific murder of George Floyd, which happened as we record this, 10 days ago. Mm-hmm. And the response to it has been mixed. I think the protests, and I think you and I both agree that the protests are legitimate. The rioting and looting is bullshit, and all it does is muddy the waters. It distracts people, because people that don't want to focus on the real issue of police brutality against minorities can now say, oh, but they're looting and rioting, and right. So they don't have to talk about the real issue. And that's and you and I being business owners, when I see a storefront smashed and stuff stolen as a business owner, my heart breaks for that person who sweated and built a business and put in money and time and everything else, and now they have to start from scratch. And my heart breaks for those people. But it's a fucking distraction from the real topic, which is minorities like George Floyd continue to be murdered. And if you watch that video, I don't know how you could say it's anything but a murder. 8 minutes on somebody's neck. It's a murder. That's it. Yeah. And as we record this right now, the other 3 officers haven't been arrested. I don't understand why. Somebody would need to explain that to me. I don't understand why those 3 guys standing around. If I'm killing somebody, Joe, and you're just standing around not stopping me, aren't you complicit? Maybe not of murder, but of something. Aren't you guilty of something?
Something. It's not first-degree murder, but it's something.
Yeah. So back to the podcast, Joe and I both were like, should we just skip this week? It just seems, and I just have this thing in my head, Joe, that if we skip one, we're going to start skipping. And I don't want to do that. I'm proud of our longevity in this and our consistency coming week after week, even when we've traveled, we've pre-recorded weeks. And, other than Christmas, the last couple of years, we've been here for our listeners. And I just think that that's important. So we kicked around a couple topics. We didn't want to come across as tone deaf and not talk about what's going on. We're not a political show, so we didn't want to dwell on it. But so I came up with the idea of let's talk about protest songs. And
Mike is a political show. Mike has his own political show. It's called Facebook.
Joe has to remind me all the time. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk. So that's how blatant the political issue is this week. It's like Joe has finally agreed to, I guess we got to talk about it, because usually Joe just wants no.
There's a separate Mike show.
Right, exactly. Well, that's my Facebook feed.
I know.
If you want to get my political views, all you got to do is follow me on social media, unless I've already blocked you, which I have blocked a number of people in the last few weeks.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. When I lost my dad to COVID, I lost a lot of patience when it came to my tolerance for people. So anyway, I said, how about we talk about protest songs? It's topical to what's going on, but it's also topical. People love our music shows, and usually it's music that we can use in events. I would call most of these anti-event songs. As I put my list together, I don't think I've ever played any one of these songs at an event.
No, I don't think I have either.
Because it's not exactly the mood you want to set at an event.
I think one of them.
Angry, effed up songs or not. Yeah, actually, I have Imagine on my list. I don't know if we'll talk about that today, but I've played Imagine at gigs.
Right.
But, how many did you come up with? Because I could talk about protest songs all day, but
I did. I mean, I had several, but I narrowed it down to 5 for the sake of interest and sanity, I guess.
And by the way, if you're watching this on video on YouTube on John Young's channel, if you want to hear some snippets, jump over to the audio-only version because I'll do some post-edit work with this, and I'll drop in some sound clips. I can't put the whole song in, obviously, because we'll get blocked everywhere. But I'll probably put 15 to 20 seconds of each song that we're talking about.
Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, kick it off, Mike.
You want to start, Joe? You want to give us a protest song that speaks to you?
You kick it off. You kick it off.
All right. So a shameless plug for my book, On This Date in Music. We actually just passed the date that I wrote about this song. John Lennon, he's holed up in a hotel room doing one of his, what he called bed-ins back in the day, where it was just him and Yoko. And they received reporters all day long talking about anti-war stuff. And at one point, talking to a reporter, John Lennon just spit out the words, "All we are saying is give peace a chance." And that was the light bulb that went off in his head. He sat down and he wrote the song, Give Peace a Chance. He invited a bunch of people into the hotel room with him. They were in Toronto. He called for a mobile recording studio that came in, and they recorded the song in the hotel room in Toronto. Everybody clapping along, some people singing along. If I remember correctly, Donovan, the musician, was also in the room. And it's one of those songs, the verses don't really mean a lot. Everybody's talking about, but the chorus, and Lennon specifically said, I wanted to write a protest song that they could chant at their anti-war rallies. And I can't think of a better, all we are saying.
So good.
Is give peace. And I just think he set out to write something like that, and he did an amazing job. So I started my list with it, and I would start the show with it because I think that is probably, in my opinion, I love John Lennon, I love the Beatles, so it's I sway in that direction anyway. But that's one of the great ones as far as I'm concerned.
It's an unbelievable song. You're right. I didn't even know that story. I need to, I definitely need to sit down. I go through your book and I'll pick out days, especially what day of the week it is sometimes, and I'll read some. But I really want to read the whole thing. Do
you know Chuck Leonard?
Chuck Leonard.
He's a DJ. I believe he's from California. I could have the location wrong, but he put up a picture a few times. He bought my book and basically put it on the back of his toilet. And basically every morning he reads that day's clip. And to me, that is the ultimate compliment.
I was about to say, is that a compliment that he's taking a Duke while he's reading it?
Other authors may not like that. But first of all, I think most of the pieces in that book are perfect. Are the perfect length for that activity. And, it's a great way to, that's all. I mean, I intended this, just read one a day on that date.
Yeah.
Sometimes the date lands perfectly. Like I wrote about U2 on St. Patrick's Day. I wrote about Auld Lang Syne on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's just, and, give peace a chance. I forget, I think it was about a week or so ago, but it was the date that the song was recorded in the hotel room. And that's when I chose to write about it.
Mike, I talk about this sometimes, especially with my kids, when I get frustrated that they won't open their ears to more music. But there's a benefit to being older. I guess we're not old. In that, so I'll be 50 next year. You're 50, what, 4? Something like
4.
That. Is that you and I have grown up through 4, so far, decades of music. In other words, you were a kid in the actually, you caught some of the 60s. I was born in 71, so I got to hear all the 70s funk, disco, rock, and through the 80s, the new wave, and then the 90s, all the hip hop and the P. Diddy's and Ludacris's of the world, and then into 2000 and, today. And there's a benefit, you know what I mean? I sometimes I'm like, damn, I'm getting older, but then I'm like, man, I heard so much good music. But
yeah, there's a T-shirt I see advertised sometimes that says, I may be old, but I saw all the cool bands. And yeah, I mean, I missed I was still a kid in the 70s, so I never got to see the Doors or Led Zeppelin or whatever. But I mean, I certainly am old enough to have listened to those as a kid.
Sure.
And not just discovered them later in life. But yeah, I mean, some of that music is dated and whatever, but I also happen to think it's pretty damn good music.
I mean, dude, even like I remember in high school, so that would have put me 17, that would have been 87, 88, something like that. I mean, we still thought Zeppelin were gods, and that had been what? Yeah. 60 something.
Yeah.
But the other point I was going to make is, you also live through eras of history, a lot of which you would like to forget. September 11th, I still have never watched a documentary on it. Don't like to really talk about it. Don't like to think about it. And ironically, here we are in 2020, and I remember this Rodney King thing in 1991, I think it was. Like it was yesterday. Yeah. So I would have been 20, you would have been 24 or 25, something like that. I'm sure you remember it. I'm sure you remember the acquittal, the rioting after. And this song came out that same year about this, Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of. And, if you want to hear the polar opposite of Give Peace a Chance, this is probably that song. Right. The entire end, Zach De La Rocha, the lead singer, is literally screaming, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." I mean, it is the most aggro, powerful protest song probably that I know. And I'm sure it's been used for a million other things to motivate me on a run, to get me fired up for something. And until you really go back and read what it's about and why they wrote it, it takes on a whole different meaning, just like a lot of these songs that I'm going to talk about today. So that's mine. That's one of mine. Yeah, that's an interesting one for me. I knew the song. I didn't know that was in response to the Rodney King beating and the riot. And so I'll have to go back and revisit that song and listen to it in that context. But yeah, that's I like I said, I know the song, and it's one of those songs that makes you want to run through a brick wall when you listen to it. Like, just talk about empowerment, and you're right. It's the opposite of just give peace a chance. It's we're going to take peace and we're going to strangle it by the throat. Analogy. Ohio by Neil Young. Here's another classic rock song. And another one that was written in response to a specific incident. If you're from, and it's 50 years ago now. The Kent State massacre happened in 1970. Basically, it was kids on a campus in Kent State that were protesting the Vietnam War, and they called in the National Guard, and the National Guard started shooting at these college kids that were unarmed and peacefully protesting. Wow. Maybe one of them threw a rock. That is the story that's been told. Sure. But it certainly didn't deserve firing into a crowd. 13 kids were injured, 4 killed. Neil Young heard about the story, saw the picture. There's a very famous picture of the girl kneeling in front of a dead body and with her arms in the air. You've probably seen it, even if you don't know it's Kent State. And Neil Young, the story is Neil Young took his guitar, walked through the woods, and an hour later came back with Ohio. Oh, wow. Tin Soldiers and Nix is coming. We're finally on our own. This summer I hear the calling, 4 dead in Ohio. Crosby, he was with Crosby, Stills, and Nash at the Young and Young at the time, and they immediately went into the studio, recorded the song. I believe they had it released within a month, and to me, that's the ultimate protest song in response to a specific incident, the massacre at Kent State. The song "Ohio" by Neil Young. It's an amazing song to me, and amazingly, talk about music that should be in the moment. That's so in the moment. It happened within weeks. It's literally like the soundtrack to that part of history. Yeah, I do know. And that's one of the reasons why I believe music can pivot so quickly. If you want to make a movie today about the George Floyd incident, it's going to take you a year to get it out. Any movie of any quality. But and I'm sure there are artists right now writing songs about this. Absolutely. They could be released next week. They could be on Spotify within a week. That's the difference between music and other art forms. You want to write a book about this, especially now with the internet. Yeah, exactly. When Ohio came out, you had to press the vinyl and
Right. Yeah, right. You could have that on Spotify, and for all I know, there might be some on Spotify now. But I think that's one of the beautiful things about music, that it can react so quickly in the moment. So Ohio, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. That's my next one.
My next one, one of my favorite bands. I've seen them several times. Followed them forever. Just think they're cool. Modern day punk rock. Green Day, American Idiot. And again, this is a political song. I knew what it was about. So this came out in 2004. It was basically just an absolute slap in the face to George W., that was the president at the time. Everybody that's, I guess, I don't know what age you would be, would know, September 11th happened, and subsequently the war in Iraq after, and they're basically just saying, you're the American idiot, Prez. And it just, they never name him. I'm sitting here looking through the, the lyrics and stuff, but this is like what punk rock was founded on. You know what I mean? Like these type of songs, these type of lyrics, super fast, and like 3 chords, and just literally just spitting fury. And ironically, this article that I pulled the song up on said, again, not to get political, but it said it was big in 2004 after the war in Iraq. But interest in the song has seen a resurgence following the election of Donald Trump, and began to climb the UK charts when the president visited the country in 2018. So, it literally 14 years later, they're carrying it on, or somebody's carrying it on to mean any presidential figure.
So here's one thing I'll say about that song. Yes, it's a they are pissed about the George W.
Sure.
But they also are pissed about the media, and they make some comments in that song.
Yeah, I saw that.
One nation controlled by the media, information age of hysteria, television dreams of tomorrow. So I think they were also making some commentary about how we can be overwhelmed by the media. And
we all can relate to that.
Yeah, exactly. Right, and this was 14 years ago. And if anything else, shit has gotten worse.
These things, telephones.
Yeah. You and I have talked about this, about limiting the amount of time that you spend watching the news.
Yes.
I think people need to do that. I think especially in this day and age, if you spend 12 hours a day with CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or whatever on, you're going to go into clinical depression. And so you literally have to
shut it down.
Just shut it down. I give myself an hour a day. I want to be informed. I don't want to be ignorant. And first of all, I'd rather read the news than see it. So I read my newspapers in the morning because there's something to me that's overwhelming with the video portion of it. And I don't want to sit there and watch the news. So I think that was one of the brilliance of that whole album. Green Day's American Idiot was they were commenting on the current political situation, but they were also commenting on the media. So
let me speak on one thing real quick, Mike, that you talked about. And I agree. I mean, listen, the looting and the rioting, it does take away from the thing, but we're seeing the looting and the rioting because that's what makes good ratings. I wish the media would show
no doubt.
Media, like if there's a peaceful protest on this block and you only got one news crew, and down here they're breaking out windows and stealing TVs, then where's the media going to go? They're going to go to that. So
the vast majority of the people walking in the streets are peaceful. They are protesting. They're pissed, and they have a right to be.
Damn
black,
right.
white, or any color. We have a right to be pissed about the way police treat minorities in this country. But I'll say this, not only is the vast majority of the protesters peaceful, the vast majority of law enforcement are not racist and not bigoted and would never murder somebody like George Floyd. So I understand we need to hold law enforcement to a higher standard and the few need to be outed, but let's not throw out all the police because, we all know the vast majority of law enforcement would never have done something like that. But also let's recognize that the vast majority of the protesters are peaceful and they only want to affect change. They don't want to smash windows and steal the, HDTVs because that just is taken away from the point.
Right.
No doubt.
You're up, Mike.
Whose turn is it?
I think it's yours.
Mine. So I'll give you a newer one just so people don't think I'm stuck in the 70s. Childish Gambino, This Is America. Was that on your list?
No, it wasn't, but
okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great, or I should say this, it's a good protest song. It is a great protest video.
That video is amazing.
The song itself is pretty good. I get what he's saying, but when you watch the video and from start to finish, including the last, I don't know whether it's a minute or 30 seconds of him just running and being chased, it is a chilling video and a chilling testament about what African Americans have to go through in this country. I was talking to a good friend of mine who's African American. I don't want to say his name because I don't know if he would want me to talk about specifically what he said, but he has 2 beautiful daughters. And he said to me the other day, I'm so glad I have girls because if I had a son, I would worry about him every time he left the house.
Damn.
And that's what, people who think there's no such thing as white privilege, Joe, when your boys are old enough to go driving, you are going to say to them, hey guys, drive the speed limit because I don't want you to get into an accident and I don't want you to get
or run over somebody or stay off your phone.
But you're not going to say, hey, boys, drive the speed limit because I don't want a cop to drag you out of the car and kill you. Yeah. And that's the difference. African Americans have to be concerned about that. And it sucks and it's something that needs to change. And I thought Childish Gambino kind of really hit the nail on the head with This Is America. Like I said, good song, great protest video. Watch the video.
Yeah, watch the video. Fight the Power, Public Enemy.
Unbelievable song.
So this was 89. I was 18. Really didn't know anything about Public Enemy. I mean, and again, like Mike said, I mean, somebody can put out a song today on TikTok and there be a superstar Friday. If the song takes off, there were 10 rap groups when Mike and I were teenagers, maybe. You either like LL or Houdini or the Beasties or Run DMC. Like there was, you had a handful of guys. Now it's like, I don't even know 80% of the ones my kids listen.
Well, Joe, think about it. Hip hop really emerged in the late 70s. So by the late 80s, it's still a brand new genre.
Right.
The artists are still figuring out what they want to do with it. And I think one of the interesting things right around that time is it was branching in 2 different directions. You had your fun party hip hop.
That's
and
right.
then you had your serious hip hop that was going to take on issues.
Social movement. Yeah.
And they're the same genre of music, but I mean, there were 2 completely different branches and NWA, which you and I can't say what that stands for, but we all know what NWA stands for. They were at the forefront of writing some of that very socially conscious hip hop.
Yep. And actually wrote F the Police in 88. I was just reading, and that the whole Rodney King thing didn't happen until 92. I mean, like they were like 4 years ahead of that. But this song was, about racial tension, the Fight the Power, and I think I probably saw Public Enemy and heard something else they did before I heard this song. And I just remember like Chuck D and the way he sounded. And then I'm like, but why does he have this kind of clowny Flavor Flav guy with him? And it was almost to just lighten it a little bit because it was so hard. They've said that. Like we brought, that's why Flavor is there. He's not really an MC. He's almost just to tone it down a notch. And I remember hearing this lyric and I was like, this was one of the first time I was like, oh, everybody doesn't think the way I think, or I never looked at it that way. Elvis was a hero to most, but he never meant shit to me. You see, straight up racist. That sucker was simple and plain. Motherfuck him and John Wayne. And I was like, oh shit. Like, am I not supposed to like Elvis now? My parents like Elvis. Like what did Elvis do? You know what I mean? And so I start going back and trying to, and back then there's freaking the fledgling of it. Actually, there was no internet. I don't know how I tried to probably figure out like, what did Elvis do? You know what I mean? Like, why are they saying this? And it was one of those first times, again, I was 17, 18, like hearing, oh shit, like everybody didn't think the way I think. Everybody didn't feel the way I feel, about whatever it is, artists, music. Anyway, that lyric just was like, holy shit. So Fight the Power.
That's powerful, dude.
Yeah.
It's powerful. So speaking of powerful, I was watching the movie Lady Sings the Blues the other day, which is the Billie Holiday story, starring Diana Ross. I think it was made in like the early 70s. And there's a scene where she gets out of this, they're traveling around the South, and she gets out of the tour bus and she's walking and she sees a black man hanging from a tree. He's been lynched. And they cut to her singing the song Strange Fruit, which I had never, I think I was familiar with the song, but I never really listened to it in that context. And I literally was watching this movie and I doubled over in pain because the song is so guttural and painful and basically talks about southern trees bear strange fruit. And the strange fruit is black men hanging, or black people hanging from the trees when they've been lynched, and you know, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. And it was I can't say, if I had made this list a month ago, I wouldn't have added that song to the list, because it's a song I kind of always knew, but I never really listened to it in that context. And I was just like, holy shit, what a powerful image and song. And it just kind of ripped me up.
Damn.
Yeah.
I know that song because somebody sampled it. I was trying to look it up.
It's a standard.
It's Kanye's record.
Holiday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of people sang it.
Yeah, sampled it. Like this was, I think it was called.
It's sampled too.
Yeah, Blood on the Leaves. Kanye sampled that. I knew that record.
Okay. Yeah.
My next one is definitely more mellow than the first three, I guess. Again, it was a song I listened to. This came out in '71. Marvin Gaye, What's Going On? No clue what it was about. I remember my parents had this record, the actual vinyl 12-inch record. The album's called the same thing. One of my favorite albums still. And I don't know if it was I think it was just the nostalgia of it, you know. And then as I got older, I started listening to the record, like actually listening to it. The article that I was reading about it today was saying, you know, that originally it was written by somebody in the Four Tops, and you know, we all know their songs as DJs. Those are very kind of bubblegum Motown.
Yep, happy,
pop.
upbeat.
Yeah. And that was not a song that they were going to record. It just wasn't good for their brand, I guess. And they passed it to Marvin, who was obviously also a fellow Motown artist. And he just took it and ran with it. And basically, that whole album is almost.
Well, and he also had a fight to get it done. You know, Berry Gordy, the owner of Motown, had a very distinctive philosophy. And he wasn't alone in that time, that he didn't want his artists making political songs because he knew that was going to turn off some of the audience. You know, when you sing about love and dancing in the streets and happiness, everybody can relate to that. Right. But, you know, when you start singing anti-war songs or, you know, peace songs or anything like that, you're going to turn some people off. And Berry Gordy, being the ultimate capitalist, was like, why do I want to split the audience? And so he didn't even want Marvin Gaye to do it. But Gaye at that point had, you know, he had become one of the bigger artists at Motown. So he kind of forced his hand and said, no, I'm the artist. I want to do this. And it's gone on to be an amazing song.
Yeah, I didn't say, but it was basically the guy from Four Tops said he was at Berkeley and he saw police attacking anti-Vietnam War protesters. So that's how the song came about. So anyway, love that song. Love that album.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. What you got?
What do we got? One more each? I could do this all day, but I don't want to go too long. So I'm gonna throw a Prince one in. You know, Prince. Most people don't think of Prince as writing very socially conscious songs, and most of the times he did, they were just album tracks, and they didn't really, you know, go anywhere. Ronnie Talked to Russia. Russia is off one of his early albums. Money Don't Matter Tonight. He has a song called Race. He wrote a song a few years ago about the Baltimore riots. And again, these songs didn't get big, so most people wouldn't think of Prince as getting involved socially. But if you listen to the lyrics of Sign of the Times, which is the title track off of that album, he talks about a lot of, you know, political type things. I don't know whether it's a protest song or just as much as a socially conscious song. Sure. But he talks about poverty. He talks about going to the moon. You know, why are we sending people to the moon when people can't feed their babies? And he talks about AIDS. He calls it the big disease with a little name.
What year was this?
Prince's Sign of the Times is 88, probably.
Yeah, that's what I was
88. Yeah. Which, speaking of AIDS, is very early in the AIDS crisis that most artists weren't even talking about it or even recognizing it. And so that's the one I'll throw in there. It's my favorite artist, so I wanted to get a Prince one in there. But I'd say Sign of the Times is definitely where Prince moved away from his typical party type messages to something more socially conscious.
I didn't know that about that song, actually. I mean, I figured, Sign of the Times, obviously an obvious title, but I need to go back and look at the lyrics for that.
Yeah, if you listen to the lyrics, he's definitely trying to take on some, or at least like push some topics out into the public.
I remember seeing this video on MTV. It was a live video, which was kind of odd for the 80s during the MTV era. Was Sunday Bloody Sunday, U2, and it looks like they're in a place kind of like Red Rocks, if I'm not mistaken, and Bono, with the mullet. I mean, just he's so young.
Isn't he waving a flag?
Yeah, I think he does.
Of that video?
Yeah, I think he waves a flag, and it's definitely.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to watch it, but so I didn't know anything about the song. I remember listening to it as a kid. I remember loving U2, and I was like, "What is this about?" I mean, the lyrics are just so heavy. Broken bottles under children's feet, bodies strewn across the dead end street. But I won't heed the battle call. It puts my back up against the wall.
Puts my back up against the wall.
I mean, we just thought it was like a great song. Like, what is the song? But and who knows how long? I mean, I probably listened to it my entire youth, just thinking it was a song. You know what I mean? Just I don't know what it was about, but. Apparently, this was 11 years prior to the song coming out. There was an incident where the British Army opened up fire on basically a civil rights protest when Ireland divided, and then that became how the IRA got bigger, and so on and so forth. It sounds like Lennon and McCartney wrote songs about it, but this song obviously is the most famous, song that I know of about that incident. Oh yeah, Live Aid. I think that's where that video was.
Is that their signature song, you think?
Man,
U2. I mean, it's hard to say. They have so many, but
they do. I mean,
got to be up there. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely their signature song for people our age, and I think that younger generation would know the more positive. It's a beautiful day. You know what I mean? Like I know my kids know it's a beautiful day. I don't know that they would know Sunday Bloody Sunday.
Wow. That makes me feel old.
I'm just saying.
A song from my high school years, and that's probably right. Though.
I'm being honest.
You're probably right.
You got one more for me, Mike?
Well, are we going to end, or you want to do one more?
No, I'm. That was it. My list is done. My list. So that was 5.
I'm gonna, instead of doing our normal outro for this, I'm gonna play some lyrics from Imagine.
Perfect.
I wouldn't say Imagine is a protest song per se, but and I know I started with a Lennon song. Now I'm ending with a Lennon song, but I just think the lyrics are so perfect, and I know some people don't like the Imagine No Religion line, but I think what Lennon was saying was, if we could all live to the ideals he talks about in this song, that we wouldn't need religion.
Right.
And I really think I believe that's what he was saying. So thank you for participating with this show. I know it wasn't your typical topic, but I think it was the best thing we could do.
I agree, man. And sometimes I'm like, I don't know about that. And then once I do a little bit of research, you know what I mean? And then realize that some of these songs, like I said, I don't ride around and listen to protest songs, but damn, I've listened to all these songs before that we mentioned today. Right. I just don't think I heard them the same that I'll probably hear them now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully our listeners will do the same. Go back and maybe re-listen to some of these songs. If you want a few more, I put up a post on my Facebook page 2 days ago. When this drops, it'll be 2 days ago. My favorite 20. And then what I like about this post is other people are commenting and adding some songs that I didn't include. Including that the Rage Against the Machine song was not on my list, but a few people have tagged that. So that's definitely one I'm going to go back and re-listen to.
Man, that's powerful. All right,
we're
everybody.
Gonna have to come up with something different next week, Joe. Something to lift some spirits. Thank you.
Next week is going to be about aliens, because there's going to be an alien invasion.
Is that your next prediction?
That's my next prediction for 2020.
An alien invasion.
Stand by for aliens.
Favorite sci-fi movies that have predicted this? Is that it?
Exactly. Favorite Spielberg moments. All right, everybody. Thanks.
Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe out there.
Yep.
All right. Ciao.
Later. Bye.
Bye.